Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you joining us from all parts of the globe. Thanks for joining us in this webinar. It's called Introduction to Ansible Automation Platform Certification. My name is Mike Jarrett. I'm a member of the Red Hat Partner Connect marketing team that's hosting this event. This session's for our build partners who are looking to differentiate your solutions with automation. What's automation? Well, it's an operator expert in a box, essentially, but our excellent speaker, Andreas Benakritis, will be talking to that today. Andreas is a product manager from our Ansible business unit. Great talker, great speaker, and you'll get a lot out of him. Before we kick it off, I want to let you know that the session will be recorded, so you can visit again later. You can pass the link off to your friends and have them and colleagues and get them a chance to view it as well. During the webinar, we're going to be taking your questions, send them in as they come up. We're going to be saving those questions at the end after Andreas gets through all of his portion. So we will have that Q&A section. So again, please add your questions as they come up into the question box. So with that, let me hand it off to Andreas.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me. And I think this is the first time that an Ansible speaker, or someone from Ansible, is actually speaking up here with Red Hat Connect. So really excited to do this. And I wanted to kind of share. We're going to share some slides. Yes, this is a webinar, and we're going to do some slides. But I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible. I only have about 15, so I want to make sure that you get what you need. Please use the questions tab in the app. And I wanted to just give a good overview of Ansible from the point of view of a partner, right? So, and when we talk about partners, we're talking about personas. But if you're joining this, you're either a member of Red Hat Connect, or you are a prospective, you want to be part of the Red Hat ecosystem. You may already be part of the Red Hat ecosystem, but not really understanding how Ansible fits in. So this is going to be where we're going to try and talk about, and then we talk about developing and certifying, but I'm going to start a little early on, not everyone knows what Ansible is still, even though we've been around for about 6-7 years. We're going to talk about the partner, why a partner would want to enable their platform with Ansible. We'll talk about the personas that use Ansible. I want to go into a very, very high level partner integration examples. We're not going to get too technical here, right? This is our first time we're doing this. We have lots of resources for technical aspects. And then we'll talk about actually delivering and certifying an official integration. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Hopefully it won't be more than a half hour. So automation is obviously important. So Forrester, this was a quote from them: automation is a boardroom imperative, especially in today's era. This year, 2020, a highly crazy year. A lot of things have happened that have turned IT upside down. Before, automation as a boardroom imperative, people have used automation just to get things done, whether or not management gives their approval to do so. A lot of the low-level automation projects are typically done at an organic level from automation engineers, sysadmins, network engineers, cloud engineers, those types, security. They all are still in the enterprise space, largely still in their own little walled gardens or silos, and they're using automation to actually get things done for themselves, whether or not management approves, knows, or has anything to do with it. So now with 2020, for obvious reasons with COVID, automation is a boardroom imperative. So what is Ansible? So if you're new to Ansible, the word Ansible itself can mean a lot of different things. So when you actually refer to Ansible, it means a lot of different things. So sorry, that was my dog. So when Ansible is actually, Ansible means a lot of different things, and it means it's an automation software company, right? When you say Ansible, it was a company that was purchased by Red Hat in 2015. It's also an open source project, right? Ansible is an open source project. It's a CLI tool you can download on your laptop, and you can install that. it's also something that is part of the presentation layer. When people talk about Ansible, they often talk about the actual scripts or the things that people write, the playbooks that people write to automate a task as part of that, and that's used YAML. And then the third piece when you talk about Ansible is when we talk about Red Hat, you talk about a holistic enterprise supported product that includes all of the bits and bytes. It includes Ansible, the CLI tool, the GUI, a web interface, the API, all of the managed services on cloud.redhat.com, as well as the certified and supported content delivered by Red Hat. So when you talk about Ansible, when we say, what is Ansible? When people refer to Ansible, it can mean a lot of different things. And for the purposes of this webinar, we're going to talk about mostly around how Ansible is going to be the actual holistic, how it feeds into the enterprise class product by means of creating solutions that will also be upstream for community consumption. So, who uses Ansible? And this is, and again, this is a cool slide I created. And if you've seen a lot of Ansible presentations, this is kind of a new presentation because we're geared towards partners. So we were really interested in, who really uses Ansible? And spoiler alert, it's a lot of different people, right? So the people that use Ansible traditionally, back when Ansible started, was the IT operations team, right? This was a Linux solution. This was to solve a lot of problems for Linux. These were the sysadmins who were trying to get things done around Linux and all that. But as it's evolved, it's becoming more of the across-the-board IT operations team. So we no longer can just automate Linux. We can automate security. We can like firewalls, network devices, cloud instances, light bulbs even, right? If you can actually connect to it via SSH, it's automatable via Ansible. So the operations team is typically one persona who oversees the ability to provide automation to the rest of their team. And from an enterprise standpoint, this means managing multi-site inventory, allowing RBAC and creating automation at scale, right? Once you start getting 2 or more people automating, you need to have some kind of infrastructure or some kind of enterprise class automation solution to provide that automation to the end users. So the automation, the second persona is automation developers, right? These are the plumbers. These are the people, and these are probably most likely the people here on this call. If you're a partner, you have a platform that you have a solution that does something, right? And it's installed on an endpoint, right? You have a solution that's on a virtual machine. It can be part of a container. It can be on a fixed on-premises, bare metal system. But these platform developers are the coders. They're the ones that know Go. They know Python, and they're the ones that are going to start making sure that their platforms are automatable and in creating integrations with Ansible via Ansible content, which would be consisting of modules, plugins, roles, etc. So that's going to be primary focus here is the platform developers, but you can't forget about the actual automation implementers. These are the people that actually write the playbooks. These are the end users. These are our mutual end customers, right? They purchase your product, they purchase Ansible and other Red Hat products, and then they will be writing playbooks kind of to stitch all of these together. So they're going to be implementing their tasks, the workflows going back to back to make sure that they're the ones that are saying, day 0 operations, day 1 operations, day 2 operations. What are those tasks that are being done manually that you can move into the automation space via Ansible playbooks? So these are some, what I feel is the real top level personas as we talk about Ansible integrations. And we want to make sure we keep in mind this presentation is kind of focused around the platform developers and then a bit about the automation implementers. So you are a partner. You are a Red Hat partner. Why would you care about making your solution integrated with Ansible, right? There has to be some, what is it in it for you in order to make your solution part of the Ansible ecosystem, right? It's these three things. It's faster adoption, it's easier to support, and shorter sales cycles. So if you have a solution that you enable Ansible, you can actually get people up and running quicker as part of that adoption strategy, right? So instead of having to learn a whole new technology and all this sunk cost into a specific platform, people can start using the Ansible that, if they already know Ansible, since it's human readable, it's pretty easy to learn, they can start implementing Ansible as their presentation layer into your technology to better, for faster adoption into their holistic IT strategy. It can be easier to support. Think about all of those all the documentation, all of those manual steps, all those CLI commands that are part of your documentation, and not being quite sure, when you actually have a support case, if someone comes in and says, this isn't working, well, what did you do, right? Instead of kind of reverse engineering how someone was implemented all these manual processes and procedures into installing, configuring, and maintaining your solution, why don't you just provide them an Ansible playbook or an Ansible role or Ansible content, which is much more supportable, much more predictable around what's going to happen in that user outcome. So it's easier to support a solution if you provide Ansible playbooks and roles in the end, right? So we see this today as part of Red Hat. So even though Red Hat purchased Ansible, we now have a lot of Red Hat teams that are creating Ansible content as part of their day zero and day one activities. Examples are Red Hat Satellite, Red Hat Insights, Red Hat Enterprise Linux has had system roles for quite some time and are going to be fully supported here soon. So even Red Hat ourselves, we're eating our own dog food and recognizing the value of Ansible as part of the day zero, day one, and day two activities. So this is all about money, though. In the end, you can have shorter sales cycles if you have Ansible, right? Since Ansible abstracts away complexities for various platforms, you can get people up and running. So you can have quicker POCs. Quicker POCs means a shorter PO, right? People get up and running. So we've seen this a lot, say, in the network automation space. We had expectations from some of our customers that were expecting to have their POC run 6 to 9 months. Whereas when we started getting into it, their POCs ended up running for about 6 to 9 weeks, right, at most. So you can go from months to weeks from a POC cycle and then start recognizing revenue quicker. So this is why we think it's really important to start having Ansible adoption and then moving into the certified space for joint support. But I can't, and it's funny, I can talk about this, but I can show this. This is actually a tweet that came out here, honestly, just a couple days ago on November 30th. So the nice thing about Ansible is that it can be your top level. You don't have to, you can use Ansible or you don't. You don't have to throw away all of your existing automation. If you have scripts, if you have automation point tools, you can integrate with them. But imagine, here's a Mark McNally being able to, right, at a push of a button, do an automation to upgrade everything all at once. And obviously he says you don't want to do this, right? Theoretically, you can do this, which is great. There are probably other business processes that are keeping him from doing this, wanting to do this from an enterprise standpoint. But this is a good source of proof point saying, wow, this it really feels like magic, even though it isn't. This is actually something that you can actually get a hold of and really utilize when you want to. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So you can automate pieces of your infrastructure. It can be, start with Linux and then move into the network, move into cloud, bring it into other teams, and then you can start kind of creating a holistic automation strategy for the entire IT team. So if you haven't seen what a playbook is, this is the basics of an Ansible playbook. I wanted to show this to you because it's not magic, right? This is exactly what people would write. And this is a very simplistic use case. And I wanted to show you kind of just how easy this is, right? The whole idea behind Ansible is that it's built on top of Python, so that you don't have to know Python, right? You can still automate things using Python. If you're a Python developer and you have a huge Python development team, you can still automate things, right? That's not the thing. The whole value for Ansible is being able to abstract away complexity. This is simplicity. This is a playbook that does three things. It installs and makes sure the Apache package is present for a Linux box. It's going to copy over the latest index.html file, and then it's going to start the service, right? This is super simple. If you didn't actually do this, you would have to do this from manual commands, right? Your manual command might be pretty error prone, as I mentioned earlier. So this is a really easy way of ensuring that tasks actually happen when you want in the right order, and it's going from top down. So I just wanted to show this as a reference as, how to actually, what an actual playbook looks like, and what are the tasks that are built in. What are the tasks you can write based on existing built-in modules. This one's using a yum module, a copy module, and a service module that's provided by the Ansible built-in collection. And we'll talk about collections in a bit. Don't worry about that. And then you can utilize external collections, right? If you're a developer for a platform, you would create your own collection, like in your own namespace. So it would be your vendor X dot collection Y, right? And then you can have all kinds of modules as part of that. That's the whole idea behind implementing Ansible for your solution as a developer. So before I keep going, I want to make sure that this is the sales pitch. This is kind of the automation platform ecosystem, but I wanted to make sure these are all the parts and pieces. When someone actually purchases Ansible, and that's part of the Ansible automation platform, you get a whole bunch of stuff, right? You get all the bits and bytes, like I said, you get content, and you get various Ansible Cloud access to Ansible Cloud services via cloud.redhat.com. But what I wanted to show you is that if you do create a partner integration, where does that actually live and where is it exposed? And where it's actually read here is exposed to the user, right? So it's not like your integrations are buried deep within the Red Hat system. This is front and center, right? It's in the, you're able to see this in Automation Hub and then utilize it directly with the Ansible Web UI and API, and then integrate with other parts of the content domains as part of larger workflows. So I wanted to show the actual location of how, how important platform integrations are and how much of a, as part of our strategy, part of Red Hat, of how important it is. So this is just a holistic kind of end-to-end, all the pieces and parts, but I wanted to show all the places where partner integrations would actually live and work. So let's talk specifically about an Ansible integration. So you're a developer. What is this actually going to mean? So we are going to actually talk about two types, right? You can actually have an integration via the Ansible CLI. You might have, this might be, you might hear Ansible CLI referred to as the Ansible project or Ansible core or Ansible engine or whatnot, right? And this Ansible integration via the CLI is the lowest, is the lowest level here. And I showed you the playbook, and it's via collection, and we'll talk about a collection in a bit. But what you want to do is start talking about an integration via a very modular set of ideals as part of the Ansible CLI, and that's plugins, modules, roles. There's also other things like documentation as part of that. Playbook snippets can be part of this. But I wanted to show you an Ansible integration via the CLI, and this one is a CyberArk, right? So if you want to have an integration, let's say you want to do a lookup in CyberArk. You have a CyberArk instance, a mutual customer. You have a CyberArk integration, and it's using the conjure variable module, as you can see. So it's doing a lookup as part of that. So this is an example of someone actually executing a task to do a lookup variable in conjure, and it's going to return that, right? Or put that somewhere. So this is an example for that, and there's a source to it. So this can also be made as part of the web UI, right? An Ansible integration can also be part of the Ansible web UI. also known as Tower, right? You might have heard of this as Ansible Tower. But you can see here that these, an integration can also be part of the web UI, and you can see CyberArk Conjure as part of an import source for credential for the Ansible web UI. We're not going to go into the details around Ansible web UI or Ansible Tower, but again, this is the enterprise use case, being able to leverage and install and create hooks into CyberArk and others, so that other users can utilize these with adult supervision and guardrails, right? So this is an example of two different types of integrations that can be created as part of the Ansible ecosystem. So I talked about Ansible Collections, and I want to talk about this really quick. If you're familiar with things like modules, roles, and all these things in parts of Ansible, we have created this new consistent schema called a collection. And what a collection is an abstraction above, it's a layer above roles and above roles and modules and plugins. So the reason why we did this was because we wanted to be able to have an ability to install and configure and publish collections outside of the Ansible project, and actually have them delivered as part of Ansible Galaxy and or Ansible Automation Hub for Certified. This is really nice because previously, before we had Ansible Collections, if developers and partners had an integration, they had to write it and they had to build it and they had to submit it to the actual Ansible project. Now the Ansible project became very, very, very big, and it was definitely time consuming, and the life cycle for Ansible project is very, very long. It can take almost 6 to 9 months to get something into a distribution. If you're familiar with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, it's very this is kind of how it was, but there's a very long long development and test cycles between major and minor releases. What Ansible Content Collections does, though, is abstracts and separates out the content from the actual executable. So if you want to create an integration, you can actually do that today and publish it today on Ansible Galaxy and then certify it with Ansible Automation Hub. So this is very, very cool. And this is probably the future. This is going to help scale Ansible better for the future, and it helps you all be the owners of your own content and of your own domain. So content collections is kind of the how if you're going the CLI route. I've mentioned Galaxy and Automation Hub. Ansible Galaxy is the community-supported repository and library for content. It was originally designed to provide Ansible roles, but that has been extended to support Ansible Collections. And Ansible Collections now contains roles, so that's also very helpful. But one word of caution that Ansible Galaxy is your mileage may vary. This is the latest and greatest, the bleeding edge of content. So you may not know what you're getting because anyone and everyone can be publishing there. The more enterprise location here is Ansible Automation Hub, and this is available via an Ansible subscription. And this is content that has been developed or supported by Ansible and or Red Hat, as well as our certified partners like you all. So this is where the joint story, the joint revenue model comes in, where we have joint support. And this is where we actually add some additional tests as part of being published to Ansible Automation Hub. And then we're going to have future enablement with advanced analytics, so we can actually provide partners with more introspection and data around how people are using their Ansible content, which is really helpful. And then we have Private Automation Hub. This is released recently. This is a means to actually have an on-premise enterprise content repository. So we have Automation Hub today on. We've had that for a while on cloud.redhat.com. But if you are an enterprise and you want to make sure that you are either in disconnected environments or you're behind a firewall and you only want certain automation teams to access certain types of content, Private Automation Hub can, the IT administrators can install and configure Private Automation Hub, which is included by default as part of the Ansible subscription. So you can pull in private content, things from Automation Hub, things from the community, and then they can be presented via the Ansible Web UI and API, and then they can connect to all the elements there. So if you're interested if you're a larger organization, if you have customers that are in large organizations and they're worried about how automation implementers are writing content, they want to make sure they're using tested and trusted and certified content. Private Automation Hub is the way to go. I can't say much more about. I can't leave about all of the things about certification. So we have over 65 certified collections on Ansible Automation Hub, which can also be synced, like I said, to Private Automation Hub if you're on premises. And it varies from infrastructure to security all over the place. We have all kinds of things, all kinds of vendors, all kinds of contributors. Even Red Hat and IBM have been really great about creating automation solutions and certifying those. And we will want to actually, as part of this effort, talking to you all in Red Hat Connect, we're ready to take it to the next step and start scaling out this effort. So we're ready to help provide assistance to existing Red Hat certified partners and bring them into the Ansible ecosystem as well if they're already part of others. So we have over 65 certified collections, and that's only been honestly in the past year. So that's quite a good amount to actually talk about. 65 collections in just about a year is really great work, and we want to thank all of the partners that actually did a part to do this. So that's pretty much all I had, and I want to just say, so what are some next steps? If we go back to our personas that we talked about earlier, if you're in IT ops, if you're in IT ops, you probably want to see more about the Ansible Web UI, and that's Tower. There's a documentation there, and by the way, I think this PDF will be published as part of this replay, and all of these links are clickable. So hopefully that should help if you want to click on some of these links. If you're in IT operations, we talked about a Private Automation Hub. There are lots of cool videos. We have some YouTube videos there. And then we have some other Ansible, some services, some managed services on cloud.redhat.com. I didn't mention them, but Automation Analytics and Services Catalog. There's some documentation as well as some videos. If you're a platform developer, you want to kind of look at the developer's guide, right? You want to look at how do you actually create, build, test, deliver, and maintain an Ansible collection. The developer guide is your one-stop there. If you want to know how to actually certify, once you actually publish upstream, and you want to certify your solution, you go to ansible.com/partners, and that gives you the certification program. And if you're a developer just getting started, there's a huge developer community, and they're on multiple Slack instances, IRC, IRC Freenode. If you know some Red Hat communities. Lots of resources there, and lots of even like small regional meetups if you want to get into the community. And if you're an automation implementer, if you're writing playbooks, the user guide is probably the one you want to see most, which means you want to know how to actually use collections, how to actually refer to collections in your playbooks, as well as how to download and install collections from both Galaxy and Automation Hub. And then some scenario guides and recommended practices for specific domains. So if you're a network engineer, we have a network guide. If you're a VMware person, we have a VMware guide. That we have all of these. Check out the scenario guides. And if you have any last-minute questions that we don't address here, please check out the email address ansiblepartners@redhat.com. That gets sent directly to our Ansible partner engineering team, who actually is in charge of reviewing and monitoring and approving and publishing content to Ansible Automation Hub, and we can help you get there. So if you have any other questions that we didn't answer here, feel free to drop us a note at ansiblepartners@redhat.com. So I think that's all I had, and I wanted to kind of leave a little bit of questions, and I didn't want to make this a super technical talk, but I'll try to do what I can. If there are any questions, I can do that.
But you're prepared to go technical if or let me put it this way. challenge people in the audience to see if they can
Well,
stump
they
Andreas. How's that? So there's a question there in our Bright Talk system. I invite you all to post your questions now. And Andreas, I've got some other questions that came in through the back channels as well. So you want to take a look at that first question about state?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the state. So the question was, you know, I have a question about what state is as part of a playbook. And, you know, we talk a lot about what the state variable is largely around desired state. And we know that Ansible can provide some level of desired state. And we can actually do a little bit there, depending on what you're using the state for, can mean different things. So if you're working, you know, you could have state, like you can actually take a look at versus state versus, like they have state values of present versus absent, right? And then you can actually use state values for as part of network. So that's typically what it's for there. There's a lot more documentation on there. So you can actually use state values for, if you have it, like, again, it depends on what the module depends on what it's used for. So you can say, you know, if something is present or something's installed, do this. And if it's not, if it's absent, do that. You have a way of actually providing some kind of some logic depending on if modules are utilizing state variables as part of that. So it depends on what you're using, like for, again, state as present versus absent and some other things there. That will definitely help you on the CLI side for sure.
Very good, thanks. Some of the questions that came in on the back channel. So you mentioned getting data to them about how customers are using their product. Can you give some examples of what kind of analytics?
We're just starting to get this. So the way you do this is, and we're building this out before we can actually provide this, and it hasn't happened yet. What we want to do is help. We want to start connecting Ansible Automation Hub to Ansible Analytics, right? These are two SaaS-based tools that we have. And we want to connect them up. So the idea here is we can actually start understanding more about utilization, downloads, uses in playbooks, tasks. This can be, you know, this is opt-in, obviously, right? This is an opt-in program for a user that can say, I want to let Red Hat and a certified partner know how I'm using their module or their plugin or whatever, right? And then that can actually get hooked into our internal systems, and then based on that, this will help us make the product better, the Ansible product, as well as provide feedback back to the partner around where they should probably start, where they should focus their activities based on the demand. So that's at the very low level what we were looking for, and then moving forward from there.
Yeah, very good. Question there that just came in for you there, Andreas.
Is it possible to understand or get to know references on Ansible automation AI ops capabilities? So yeah, I mean, AI ops is a good buzzword. So the way we typically talk about this in AI ops is great architecture terms here. And we kind of talk about how, you know, your automation journey and the progress that customers have. AI ops is typically like step, you know, phase 6. When we talk to actual customers who are trying to automate, when we talk about phases, they really want to step through this, and they don't go from 0 to 6 overnight, right? In order to get to AI ops, they need to get all of the other basics done first, right? They need to understand their inventory, how to automate their inventory, how to automate drift configuration, drift management. You're ensuring that, again, we talk about states, like making sure that, a lot of the things are done as part of a, compliance, right? So you talk about corporate compliance. All of these things have to be done first before we actually start talking about AI ops. So AI ops is in implementation, you can get to AI ops based on using Ansible the way you want to do it. But we typically don't say, use Ansible for AI ops as a canned thing, but you can use Ansible to get where you need to go if it achieves the intelligence, specific things that makes up that pieces and parts. So we don't. It's not an easy answer. That question is a great question, but that can't be answered in one sentence, and because it all depends on what you're trying to do and what the actual end customer is trying to achieve. In many cases, they read a lot of things on AI ops, and that's not really what they want. They're trying to think of something else. We say, well, do you really mean this? And they say, well, actually, yeah, let's do that first. Which they thought the AI ops meant something where it actually meant something else. Where you can talk about NetOps first, and then SecOps, and then DevOps, and then Net DevOps, and then Chat Ops, and then all these ops things, right? So, typically AI ops is one of the last things that we get pinged about, just because there's so much they have to do before they get there. Not to say we haven't gone there, but it's just getting to, like, if you had a 6-phase automation journey, getting entire enterprises on board and implemented can take months to years. But again, these things can have long-term ROI, and we have tools that actually show that. So
that's very cool.
That could be a whole nother webinar in itself. And I'm sorry, it seemed kind of hand wavy there, but
well, as far as
it is anyway. So that's my take.
For those of you that are in the game to stump Andreas, you'll get at least partial credit for that one. Because
not hard. I mean, yeah, the state one got me too. I'm not gonna lie. So
but I like the idea of having that as a drill down discussion. So let's see, we get that one done. Next question from the back door here is, when somebody wants to publish a collection to the system, so how big a deal is the publishing part? So they've written it, now what?
Yeah, it's no deal, right? It's no big deal.
Nice.
You honestly, if you are a enterprise, you most likely already have a namespace, and a namespace is kind of the top level. We talked about collections, and that's in a dotted tuple. So it's namespace dot collection name dot module, right, or dot plugin. So, or the thing contained in part of the collection. So the first level thing is, for example, if you're someone from Cisco and you're interested in publishing a collection, there's already a Cisco namespace, and you can publish it today, and it's part of the community. We just need to get you access, give you permissions to that, and there's an easy Google. If you just search for either creating a namespace or adding to it, it's a quick issue that you can add, and we can get you access. Obviously, certification is a bigger jump because of the requirements involved there, but getting a collection published is honestly no deal. If you've published a role to Galaxy previously, since it's using the same thing, it's basically the same amount of effort. It's just a different abstraction. You're going to use Ansible-Galaxy publish collection, right? We added a switch to the Ansible Galaxy CLI tool to tell it for collections as well as roles. So if you're used to publishing roles, it's basically the same thing. We just want to make sure that you create the collection properly, and there's tools to do that. Read the developer's guide. You want to make sure you initialize a collection properly. It actually will pre-populate a tree structure for the collection, and then you just drop in your content, and then you don't have to actually create that tree structure. That a lot of times people try to reinvent the wheel there, and when they try to upload, it says this is not the right format. So please read the developer's guide, and then you can read up on Galaxy and publishing to understand that.
Very cool. I was reading this week, there are 4 million systems that are managed by Ansible. That's got to be a lot of users and a lot of customers that already know how to use Ansible, right? So giving them tools around Ansible to automate our partner software, that's got to be an easy sell.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and although we would really like to make sure that partner developer teams are on board with ensuring enterprises are fully enabled. It's obviously A lot of the content will again be in the community for good soak time and for good testing. And once they actually get there organically, again, as I think I mentioned at the very beginning, is a lot of automation projects start organically, right? Management doesn't know about them. People are just trying to get stuff done. It's 2020. It's a crazy year. We're all sitting in our homes trying to work remotely and manage and configure devices remotely. And we're just trying to make do and make things as normal as possible. Now, in many cases, management doesn't know this, and then when these systems start breaking, or things start working differently than expected, because they're not interconnected, or it's not part of these organic solutions aren't part of a holistic automation strategy, things can start breaking down quickly. And this is why we really want to say to move towards certification. This would help really bridge the gap between a bottom-up approach to Ansible and a top-down strategy and buy-in from CIOs, IT management. You got to have both on board, or it's not going to be successful, right? Let's imagine you have an IT manager, and they say we need to do Ansible. If you have a network engineer who's like no way, that solution's not going to work either. So if one of the two, if the manager is on board but the engineer isn't, or vice versa, you're not going to have this is a people problem. This is not going to work out, no matter how good the solution is, no matter how good Ansible is. If the people aren't on board, if the corporate culture and the culture isn't on board with that, you're not going to have a successful strategy. You're not going to be successful there. So you can only get so far with having one on board. So
that's very good. Last call for folks to enter your questions here. We do have a few minutes. We can hold Andreas here for a few more minutes. But as a follow-up to that, what you were just saying, Andreas, digital transformation is a hot topic. Talking about buzzwords, it's a big thing that our customers, our joint customers, are going after. This has got to be a sweet spot to help all of them out, right?
Again, it's a boardroom imperative now, right? It's no longer skunkworks. It's only skunkworks. I think I saw this in a message board. It's only skunkworks until it fails and your whole system goes down, right? So it's only as important as the actual pieces and parts that are going to be there. So as much as if you're part of a digital transformation, I mentioned what I like to call an analog transformation, where the people still have to be on board. So yes, there is digital transformation, but the people have to be on board as well, as I just stated. And when the two requirements come together, it can get extremely, challenging. But we as in Red Hat can help. We have the technology, we have the consulting, we have lots of partners that can help us there, right? We have folks like you who are watching this that can help us help everyone, right? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So having additional integrations can only help the greater good. And I think it's absolutely spot on. And you'll start if we don't hear, in many cases, like why don't we hear? We hear constantly around things like, well, we need to have this enabled. And I'm like, well, you got to, we can talk to the vendor or talk to the customer and all that. So one thing I would say is don't wait. If you're a partner developer, don't wait until there are dozens of screaming customers asking for Ansible integration. Start early. You can start with the community. You don't have to jump all in on enabling Ansible. You can start with as an Ansible open source project, and then move from there. I think that's probably the best way to do it. You don't have to go from no integration to fully certified overnight. Do as you take baby steps, take bite-sized chunks, as automation implementers do. Right? They don't make complex playbooks overnight. They do one task, and they get comfortable, and then they stitch it to another task, and then you have 3 tasks, and then you have 4 tasks, and then and now you've got a bunch of things, and now it's all interconnected. And this is typically what we do. What we say with partners is, you don't have to build 100 modules. You don't have to do that right away. You can build, a few and see how those go, and then go from there. So.
Very good. Very good. Thanks a lot. Thanks all for joining today. We're going to call it now. By the way, about Andreas, the next time we have a physical Red Hat Summit, you might see this guy. And if you go, you're going to see this guy being one of our professional photographers out on the floor. So look out for him and say hello and tell him he did a great job with this webinar. Andreas, thanks a lot for your time. Everybody, thank you for yours, and have a great day and stay safe, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks all.